Hi guys, this video provides an overview on how to set up the Fortigate appliance. As mine is a virtual image, my interface ports were not configured with IP address information, so I need to do this as my first task. Usually we can just browse its factory default IP address of 192.168.1.99 on the internal interface port. So I've built a brand new virtual image here and we can log into it now. It's ready. So the username is admin and there is no password. Then if we type config system interface and press enter, if we do edit and have a look at the ports available, we can see they're all unconfigured. So if we do edit port 1 and if we do set IP, and I'll give it 10.10.20.11, my current one is .10, so this one will be .11, and I'll give it a 24-bit subnet mask. And once that's done, we can do a show, and we can see port 1 is configured with this IP address, and it's got some services as well, so we can manage the appliance over HTTPS and SSH. So if we exit out of here, and if we go to the client machine where we can browse to it, if I do http://10.10.20.11, let me make this full screen so we can see it a bit better. And then if we type admin, there's no password again, and I've not got a license, so we'll click on remind later here, and now we're in the graphical user interface of the Fortinet appliance. So the first thing we'll do is create the admin password. So if we go to administrators here, double click this admin account, change password, and there is no old password, so I'll specify a new password here. And it forces us to log back in with the new password. And the other thing I usually do from here is go back into settings of the admin area, and I usually change the idle timeout to 480 because it's a test lab and I don't like my session logging out locking me out, so apply that. And once that's done, if we go to status, we can have a look at the licensing information. So to ensure you have full access to Fortinet support and FortiGuard services, you will need to register the Fortigate unit. I have no license on this Fortigate virtual image. So it's showing the support contract. The unreachable may be due to the routing information, so we'll have a look at the routing later in the video. If I log into my licensed one, and we can see the licensing information here. So the two important ones are the support contracts, and you can see the green tick here, and my email address information is here. The FortiGuard service, so I've got IPS application control and antivirus licensed, and you can see the expiry dates here as well. So make sure your Fortigate is licensed to your to the contract you've purchased with them. Next thing we'll have a look at is features. So if we go back to the evaluation one, and we've got features down here as a widget, so you can turn them on and off from here, or if you go into config features, you've got them here as well. So you've got some basic features, you've got the security features, and if you go down here you've got a show more tab, and it shows you the rest of the features. So you need to evaluate which features you want to turn on or off from here. And disabling features also removes all related configuration options from the web-based manager, so to keep that in mind. So what we can do is, if we have a look at the security features, you've got a preset option here, and if you go for next gen firewall, for example, it will show you, it will automatically enable disabled features for you. So it shows you the changes here, so it's removed antivirus, endpoint control and web filter. But of course if you go for the opposite, which is full UTM, everything's enabled here. And then you can apply changes from here as well. The next bit I want to show you is the operating mode of the appliance. So if we go back in status, leave page, and the operating mode is here. So if we go to change, and if we drop this box down, there's two modes here. So NAT mode is the most commonly used mode in probably over 95% of deployments out there. In the NAT functionality, it's basically a layer 3 device, and you can put an IP address on all interfaces which are routable. So you'd usually leave this on by default. NAT is the most common one. You've also got transparent mode, and in this mode the Fortigate unit becomes a layer 2 IP forwarding bridge. This means that Ethernet frames are forwarded based on the destination MAC address, and so no other routing is performed. So all incoming traffic that is accepted by the firewall is broadcasted out on all interfaces, which is similar to a switch, however a little different to a switch as well, because a switch builds a port table and associates MAC addresses to them. And transparent mode, you will usually deploy it between your network and gateway router or primary firewall, and it's usually used when you need the Fortigate to provide additional security protection without having to change IP addresses on the network. It's good for services such as antivirus, web filtering, spam filtering and intrusion protection. The next thing we'll look at is if we go to status, and we've got the host name here, so we can change the host name from here. So I'll call mine test firewall. Okay, so we changed the host name on there, and also DNS. So the Fortigate unit's DNS settings are set to use the FortiGuard DNS servers by default, which is sufficient for most networks. However, you may want to change this, let's say, to your internal DNS system or a public service or your ISP DNS IP addresses. So we can do this if we go to network DNS here, and then you can specify your DNS addresses here. So I'll just use the public Google ones here and apply that. Default route, so we'll have a look at the routing next. So it's not got a route at the moment. If we go to router and then static routes, there's nothing in here. If we go back to system status area and we go to the CLI again, I don't think I should be able to ping the outside world because there's no routing information. So let me try ping Google. Yep, so that doesn't work. And if we go back into router, static routes, and we can create a new static route from here. So we're going to create a default route, so it should be all zeros, which represents the default route, so to anything. And then we need to configure the port this address can be reached through. So mine's port 1. I need to provide my gateway, which will be 10.10.20.1. and I don't need to do anything with the administrative distance. It's used when there are multiple paths to the same destination, which you can configure the distance, and the smaller the distance the better the route. So when there's multiple paths, you can use this as a way to do route preference, or even equal cost path if they're both equivalent distances. But if I click OK here, that has provided this route here. So if we go back into system status, do a ping again, and now it's pinging to the outside world, so I've got reachability. Next we'll look at the firmware version. So if we scroll up here, go back into status, and again system information, we've got firmware version here. Before you install any new firmware, you should always review the release notes for the new firmware release, and you should review the supported upgrade paths document to make sure the upgrade from your current image to your new image is supported, and you should back up the current configuration as well, which is very important, and any local certificates as well. So backup is done from here. If we click backup, you've got the option to back up to the local PC or a USB stick, and you can encrypt it as well for extra security from here. If we cancel this, once you've backed up, you can do the firmware update by clicking update here. That's a good link, so you can view the release notes, and then you can upload the firmware from here. So if you click that, you could specify the file. It should you should have a local file on your machine, and you can click that and select the file from here. You usually have recommended firmware versions and all available ones. I've got nothing because there's no reachability, there's no license, but if we log into my licensed one just to see what the status is on this one, if we go to update, again there's no recommended ones because it's on the latest version, but available ones we see a few here. And the last area we'll look at of the Fortigate initial setup is the time and date settings. So if we go back to status, and we've got the system time. I don't think you can change it on this because it's not licensed. If we go back into my licensed one, if we go to status, we've got the change option in here. So for effective scheduling logging, the Fortigate system date and time should be accurate, and you can either manually set the date and time or configure this with an NTP server. So we've got the time zone here. We can configure the time zone at least to be London, where I'm from. Okay, so it's changed my time zone. You can synchronize with an NTP server. I'm using the FortiGuard NTP servers here, or you can specify one from here, from this checkbox here, and then specify the server here. You've got to enable NTP from here, this checkbox, and click OK once you're done. And that's it for this video. Thanks for watching.